Welcome to Engedrian. If this is your first time listening, or even if you are returning, be sure to follow us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for additional content, battle maps, and background details. We hope you are enjoying our adventure. Let's see what happens next. The exploration of the next tunnel led the party to an ancient temple of giants and 3 lingering souls who informed the party that a fire giant lay not too far away with intentions of destroying the temple.
Fire giants. Fire giants are drawn to volcanoes, but they cannot create volcanoes.
Malaysia moves closer to Theranon and places his tiny hand on the ghost's giant finger.
That's true, but you ran into the fire newts. They are helping the fire giant, but they do not serve the fire giant. They serve their elemental elder fire god, Inox. He is the one that created the volcano in this location for the fire giant. Fortunately, the fire god has returned to his own plane, but the fire newts and the fire giant remain, and some other nasty creatures. Magic is the only thing protecting our temple from the fire giant's fury.
Theranon cups his hands and lifts Malaysia off the floor.
So, back to Pisendale. If we were able to destroy him, you would be free, and you could leave. But the temple would be vulnerable.
Malaysia puts both hands under his chin and slumps forward.
What is to be done?
Shadowthorn stands and moves over the stone tables and runs his hands across them. Malaysia perks up and leaps from Theranon's hands to the tables, passing through the ghost.
Shadowthorn, can you teach me to read this?
Malaysia runs his own hands along the runes and symbols.
This language is very old, little one. You could learn to read it, but it is likely the only language of its kind that remains. There were once books in our city that contained the entire story, but they have faded to dust. Nothing outside of this temple of ours remains.
As he runs his hands over the tables again, Peace lands deftly on the table. They pull parchment and an ink pen from their bag.
Dictate the story, Shutterthorn, if you wish. We will take down every word of your story in detail.
Peace smiles and points at the table. Shutterthorn laughs.
Malaysia, here, take parchment and another pen. You can copy down the actual runes and markings in the same order that we are writing the common form. It may be valuable for translating other historical texts.
Malaysia nods.
There are 2 stories here on each table. The carved runes below are read left to right from top to bottom. The middle markings are read top to bottom, right to left. Shall we begin?
Peace nods, and the giant ghost begins dictating the tablet, which Peace furiously copies onto their parchment. Malaysia listens to the story carefully and mentally notes questions he wishes to ask, but he doesn't dare interrupt Shutterthorn. After 15 minutes of reading, Shutterthorn looks up.
That is the complete story of the runes. Now for the silver markings.
He begins again. After another 15 minutes, Peace is panting a bit as they write the last words. They pause, flicks their claws, and hold up a hand to Shutterthorn, who nods. Peace leaps back down to the party, who are eating rations and talking about possible solutions for saving the temple and freeing the ghosts.
There are 12 tables in this temple, 4 in each room. It takes about half an hour for us to write down Shadowthorn's dictation. We are very concerned that, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to save this temple. Thus, if you will permit us, we would like to take the time to complete the recording of the stories on these tables. It will take about 6 hours. May we?
Umgren thinks deeply, furrows his brow, and then smiles.
Yes, I think that would be for the best, considering the risk of this volcano, and now this fire giant.
Peace nods and returns to the table. Malaysia and Shutterthorn are briefed, and then both move to the next table to begin. Umgren moves close to Theranon and Brunel.
Isendale, where is he?
Umgren looks around the large room curiously.
Sleeping, unlike the rest of us who are attuned to this temple and were awakened when the little fireman took the potion, Isendale will sleep until he is called. We let him rest for our own sake, but if you want, when you want, we can call him forth. His body is inside that statue in the central column where you detected the evil, Paladin. Although he is undead, the magic he retained or developed, we aren't really sure, is stonewalking.
Brunel smiles and bows deeply.
You are powerful ghost giants with various magics. Is there anything you can do against this volcano?
Fodinus stands next to Umgurn, twirling his daggers.
Crafty bugbear, a good question. The souls of the four of us are Frost, Cloud, Thorn, and Mountain. Would calm down the volcano back to a quiet sleeping mountain. Such an act would consume us, of course, but our silencing of the volcano means that we would leave this temple. The fire giant would be unstoppable to destroy it.
Theernon sighs and passes a finger through the air in front of Fodinus, causing his daggers to spin in the air. When they return to Fodinus's hands, they are ice cold.
But if your brother sleeps, there is nothing else dangerous here for us. May we please continue to explore and document your temple while Malaysia and Peace write down the stories?
Inicel smiles up at the giant ghost.
No need to explore, Zelani of the Great Swamp. We can give you a guided tour.
Brunel smiles broadly and waves her closer. Theophania and Inicel join Brunel as he guides them through the northwest room. Umgurn and Fodinus join Theernon, who takes them back to the southwest room where they had already walked through. Case leaps up onto the tablets and watches Peace and Malaysia taking dictation from Shedderthorn. The giant's ghostly voice is soothing and calm, causing Case to fall asleep repeatedly. After 7 hours, Peace and Malaysia have completed their notes, and Peace has placed all of them in their book of books to study later. Because Malaysia kept pace with the rune and raised markings of Peace's translated text, Peace is able to store them in their book of books adjacent and aligned for easily learning the language in the future. Malaysia has 100 questions for Shedderthorn, but can see that the ghost is growing weary. Theernon and Brunel took several hours to give the party detailed history and accounts of the various statues in the temple, notes on construction, the weapons of war, the pyramid of potions, the crystals of harmony, and the tools of many skills. They explained the command words, which cause each of the smaller statues to slide forward, revealing secure storage areas that contained many things during the temple's active days, but now only metals remain, including candlesticks, braziers, urns, ceremonial daggers, and circlets, and several small piles of coins that have softened over the eons to solid masses. Fodinus sees a few gems here and there. He says nothing for now.
Umgurn uses the Orb of Time.
It is fairly after dark and in the evening, and I think we could all use a rest. Let's have some food and then sleep here.
Umgurn nods curtly to everyone, and they begin to settle in for food and sleep. Brunel shows Malaysia where a brazier is stored, and he builds a fire. The ghosts all wave to the party and fade into their statues in the central column. Fodinus and Umgurn spend a few minutes with Peace, noting down the command words for all of the statues and explaining the weapons of war, crystals of harmony, and the tools of many skills. Peace, thoroughly exhausted, passes out immediately.
The party takes a long rest. Malaysia creates spell-wrought tattoo, Acid Stream. Malaysia creates a homunculus servant with a black opal heart. All dawn-based regeneration of charges occur.
The party awakens, stiff from sleeping on a solid wooden floor, but well rested. They eat breakfast and discuss what their plan will be for trying to save the temple.
Everyone has consumed one ration. Let's assume we defeat the fire giant. There is then no immediate threat to this temple.
Case chews on dried meat and sips his tea. Peace, still pouring tea for others, looks at Case curiously.
The volcano is a danger to all of the ruins and the temple, but only if the ghosts are gone.
Peace finishes pouring tea and sits next to Case.
The ghosts can only leave if we destroy the giant skeleton. And even if they then choose to silence the volcano to save the ruins, the fire giant would still destroy the temple in their absence.
Fodinus chews on fruits and nuts and frowns.
We'll get you some delicious meat back on the lonely lady Fodinus, but you are correct. What we need to decide is what to do first. Defeat the fire giant, and then the skeleton, and then silence the volcano. Or defeat the skeleton, silence the volcano, and then go after the fire giant.
Malaysia throws his hands up, a bit frustrated by both the need to make the decision, but also the momentous tasks that both fights represent. His tiny homunculus mimics his actions, flying just over his shoulder. Umgurn sighs and looks up at the group, moving from person to person slowly.
There is, in your question, Malaysia, a more important concern. Can we even defeat a fire giant? If it is alone, it may be possible, but what if it has a troop of fire newts with it? Or the elemental that Fodinus and Kay saw in the tunnel?
Umgren holds his hands out, palms up, and flexes his fingers slowly.
What is the biggest problem with fighting a giant?
Case continues sipping his tea.
We can answer that, Catman.
The three ghosts appear out of the floor, but have shrunken themselves to the size of regular humanoids, causing them to glow more brightly. Theernon moves close to Case. Malaysia's homunculus immediately flies into the air and begins flying in and out of the ghosts, much to the ghost's delight.
Giants are, in general, very strong relative to fleshlings. One hit from a giant's weapon or from a thrown rock can kill multiple creatures. In the case of a fire giant, they always wear very heavy armor, making most attacks against them insignificant. Their armor makes them a bit slow and clumsy. You, of course, cannot hit it with fire, as they simply laugh in your face. Sorry, little fiery man. So my advice to you, if you really want to kill this fire giant, is stay away from him and hit him from afar with your most powerful weapons and magics that don't include fire.
Theernon pauses and settles cross-legged next to Case and Fodinus, his great axe resting on the ground and leaning against his shoulder.
Wait, Theernon. You said you cannot hurt your brother, Beezendale. But this fire giant is not your brother. Can you help us?
Inacel opens her claws, palm up, and flexes them slightly with anticipation.
We have considered this during our rest, Zenani of the Great Swamp. If one of us were to be destroyed in combat, we would have insufficient magic to quell the volcano. It will take all of us. Is the temple more important than our life? We are no longer morally equipped to judge such matters, but our promise to you to silence the fires of the mountain cannot be fulfilled if one of us dies.
Theernon sighs and frowns deeply.
We may be able to help in another way. If the fire hit any of us once, it would not kill us, so we may be able to give you the advantage in battle by providing you with a ghostly umbra 3 times, but that would be all we could do, and it would only lessen the damage of its weapons, not prevent it.
Shadowthorn smiles and holds his hands together as if praying.
If we are staying at a distance, the weapon strikes would be minimal, so such an advantage would be useful. We can also deal with the fire giant's boulders, but only if they are thrown at us.
Peace pours more tea and sits down. Brunel, Shadowthorn, and Theernon look strangely at the little cat. Case laughs.
What peace means is that if the rocks are thrown at peace, they can be dealt with.
The ghosts still look confused, but smile and nod anyway.
That just leaves Fodinus.
Theophania stands and walks around the group. Fodinus looks up reluctantly and nods. The ghosts again look curiously at the centaur and the bugbear. Fodinus sighs.
I am very fast and very dangerous with my short swords. If I can attack the fire giant by surprise and penetrate his armor, I can damage him pretty severely and move away easily.
Fodinus trails off.
I sense a problem?
Brunel smiles encouragingly.
Location. I would need to likely run at the fire giant across that lava and magma stone that you described. If I tripped running towards him or away, I'd be done for.
Fodinus smiles sadly.
And a dagger attack thrown at the creature may not be as effective, but that is still possible. I think we can let you decide, Fodinus, when we encounter this creature.
Umgren pats the bugbear on the back and smiles at the group.
There is still the problem of getting to the fire giant.
Case unfolds his rough map, and the ghosts, intrigued, float above him and look at the images.
We know that this way, the tunnel opens to the lava and magma rock fields, and at least yesterday, there was a force of fire newts and the elemental in that area. We have not explored this area.
The ghosts look at the map for a few moments. Brunel floats down next to Case.
May I borrow your writing tool?
Case smiles and hands the ink pen to the ghost, who clumsily takes it and then deftly makes multiple quick strokes. When he is done, there is now a passage marked from the original eastern door entrance to the caves that goes due east and then due north, eventually connecting to the lava and magma stones. Brunel has also placed an X on the map in the newly marked tunnel just southeast of the temple chamber.
What's the X for?
Case takes back the pen and prepares to make a note.
Large, fire-breathing insects. Lots of them.
Brunel smiles weakly and returns to the floor near one of the stone tables. The party has distraught looks on their faces. Malaysia, not bothered by fire-breathing anything, stands up confidently.
Right. I think we should take a bit of time this morning to check all of the storage spaces within the statues carefully for anything that might be useful for our upcoming trials.
Fodinus smiles deviously and nods. The ghosts all nod as well, then Shedderthorn looks away.
While you are preparing, we will check the positions of these creatures this morning, as that may inform your strategy. And my little fleshling heroes, this is the last battle for the temple. Take whatever you need.
With that, the ghosts vanish through the floor and walls. The party gathers their breakfast things, puts out the fire, and begins quickly searching through the storage spaces of the 10 statues for which they have the command words to open and close them. The party splits up and searches each one in pairs, except for Malaysia, who searches on his own. The party takes enough time with each space that they easily remove and catalog everything they find. After 2 hours, they have completed the task and regroup in the room with the tools to discuss.
So, all totaled, we found a weird clockwork device, an iridescent lizard or dragon scale, a vial of quicksilver, a silver tablet with bad poetry, a list of names carved on a brass plate, a steel signal whistle, a vial of perfume, a tin spoon, an iron spike, a dragon's tooth, a dull knife, a necklace of animal teeth, a flask of salt water, 5 iron nails, a compass, a signet ring of platinum, a silver magnifying glass, a patch of chainmail, an ivory game piece, a set of 12 rune stones made of obsidian, 5 solid chunks of melted coins that weigh about 5 pounds each, an ornately carved bar of silver, 3 sets of brass and iron candlesticks, 4 in each set, and 7 carvings of giants made from jade, agate, or bone. Did I miss anything?
Fodinus makes a deception check versus Malaysia's insight check. Rolls 17 versus 19.
No, I think that was everything, yeah?
Fodinus looks around at everyone quickly with a reassuring smile and nod.
Strange. I seem to remember seeing at least 1 gem in one of the storage spaces.
Malaysia folds his arms and stares at Fodinus.
Fine, yes. There were quite a few gems.
Fodinus dumps the inside pocket of his quiet coat onto the floor next to the other items. There is a cloudy striated green malachite, a flawed golden brown tiger eye, a huge pink rhodochrosite, a chipped blue pale lapis lazuli, a huge black jasper, a black obsidian, a cracked gray-black hematite, a black obsidian, a flawed pale green tourmaline, a small murky golden brown tiger eye, a large cracked black opal, a small deep green jade, a huge pale blue sapphire, a large murky bright green emerald, a cracked black pearl, a fiery yellow topaz, a fiery orange topaz, a green chrysoberyl, a large black coral, and a blue jasper.
I was going to share, obviously. I was just practicing sleight of hand.
Fodinus smiles at the group. Inesel, however, has a stern look on her face. Theophania makes a nature check, advantage assisted by Inesel. Rolls 16. Theophania ignores most of the pile and reaches down to pick up the huge pale blue sapphire.
The rest of these gems are somewhat valuable, but it's marvelous.
She passes it to Inesel, who holds it up next to her glowing crystal sword.
It is a nearly flawless blue sapphire, very beautiful and costly.
Fodinus nods to Inesel and Theophania, who nod back slowly. Fodinus gathers the stones and places them all in his bag of holding. Malaysia steals his hand when he takes back the sapphire. Malaysia makes an arcana check. Rolls 27 critical.
Do you remember Talon's story and the story of Aurelia? She can trap people with warlock magic inside gems. The more valuable the stone, the more powerful the person she can capture. I think it's best that we not talk about this stone outside of ourselves.
Malaysia takes the stone from Fodinus and places it in his own bag of holding.
For safekeeping.
Umgren and Case laugh. but Inacel, Footinus, and Theophania smirk. Peace suddenly stands and tugs on Malaysia's coat sleeve.
Ah, Malaysia, you must know what we learned yesterday from the ghost about these tools. Heasendale was a master crafter and taught magical crafting to his followers. They would bring him examples of their work, and you must see this.
Peace moves over to the pile, pulls out 4 or 5 nondescript tools, and looks up.
Alchemy.
The tools in Peace's paw suddenly morph and shift into a complete set of alchemy tools.
Wood carving.
The same tools morph again into fine wood carving implements. Malaysia moves over to the pile and begins holding up tools and simply thinking about a craft, and the tools shift to meet his needs.
Amazing.
Malaysia opens his bag of holding and removes his carpenter's tools, smith's tools, thieves' tools, tinker tools, and wood carving tools. He arranges them all in neat piles near the main pile of magical tools. He then selects 10 of the magical tools and places them inside of his sack that held his wood-carving tools and returns it to his bag of holding. Malaysia receives 10 perfect tools of the trade.
I will leave my old tools as a gift for the ghosts. I think they would like that.
Malaysia smiles.
But there were also the crystals of harmony and the weapons of war. What did you learn about those?
The weapons of war, as you saw, are giant-sized weapons that are intended for giants to use in battle. They are quite magical and powerful, but I do not have sufficient strength to more than just lift one.
Case sighs and flexes his arm muscles nonchalantly. Peace smiles at Case and touches his arm lightly in sympathy.
The potions pyramid. Maybe there's a potion that gives you the strength to wield one.
Malaysia bolts from the room, across the adjacent room, and to the potions pyramid, studying each flask, vial, urn, and bottle with great interest. Malaysia makes an Arcana check, DC 20, rolls 23. After a few minutes, Case and Peace have joined Malaysia at the pyramid, watching the little fire genasi move around it and look carefully at each bottle. Malaysia's homunculus is flitting around the pyramid as well, making stern faces of study and focus.
Ah, here we are.
Malaysia pulls forth a small bottle of clear liquid, which appears to have a sliver of something floating in it. He hands it to Peace. He then reaches in and grabs a second bottle with a similar liquid and sliver.
These are potions of giant strength. The effects only last 1 hour after drinking them. So you can drink one, select a weapon from the rack, and then we need to hurry. You have a second dose in this bottle for another hour.
Malaysia beams with excitement over having found exactly what Case would need. Case, however, looks uncertain. Case receives 2 potions of cloud giant strength.
Is that the best use of these potions? Perhaps Fodinus would be better suited.
Case trails off and looks at Peace with embarrassment.
Malaysia, we think what Case is trying to convey is that he is afraid of facing the fire giant in one-on-one combat. In Case's homeworld, his people are taught from a very young age the dangers of fire, and fire giants were part of the mythology of that fear. He is, of course, the most brave and courageous among us, right, Case?
Case nods slowly and then shakes his head.
They are just stories. Thank you, Malaysia. This is a gift, and if I can use it to defeat this creature, I will.
He bows to Malaysia solemnly and takes the potions.
Now, to select a weapon.
Case turns and heads towards the weapons rack in the next room. Peace grins at Malaysia and follows. Malaysia turns back to the pyramid and continues to study the potions. Inacel, Theophania, and Umgurn return to the crystals of harmony, and Umgurn explains what the ghost told him yesterday.
Each of these 5 crystals are secured to the floor and to each other, creating a harmonious arcane field. Whatever is placed inside the field is trapped. If a living creature... Whatever is placed inside the field is trapped if a living creature, or kept in a phased stasis if non-living. When this temple was active, magical items that were uncertain or newly created could be placed inside the crystals to be safely studied, even destroyed without causing other damage should they be determined to be unsafe. That item is the last one placed in the crystals before the temple was shut. The ghosts were unsure of what it was or where it came from. I think they may have just forgotten.
Umgurn looks up from the crystals and sees Malaysia near the glowing pyramid of potions.
Malaysia, come please.
The genasi looks up and sprints over to the group.
Can you identify that object?
Malaysia looks at it carefully. Malaysia makes an Arcana check, DC 20, rolls 20.
It would be easier if I could touch it, of course, but based on the gray color and the yellow stripe, along with the arcane aura I'm feeling, these crystals amplify the aura, by the way. I think this is some sort of obfuscation orb. It has arcane signals that suggest as much, though I can't see them all. See that small metal rod? That's how to activate it. May I remove it from the crystals?
Umgur nods. Malaysia reaches in and grasps the orb and pulls it out. The crystals, which were barely humming before, go silent. Malaysia casts Identify as a ritual.
Just as I suggested. It's an explosive orb of obfuscation. Kind of like a smoke bomb, but it releases some nasty acid as well. This might come in handy against the fire giant or those insects.
Malaysia puts it in his bag. Malaysia receives an explosive orb of obfuscation.
That reminds me.
Malaysia sprints through the central column to the weapons room where Peace and Case are still looking at the various weapons on the rack.
Peace. I think you should have my wand of magic missiles. I can only use one wand anyway, and it will give you some distance from the giant.
Peace takes the wand, bows deeply, and hugs the genasi.
We will use it well, and then return it.
Malaysia smirks and shakes his head. Peace smiles more graciously and bows very deeply again.
Case, what weapon do you think?
Malaysia looks again at the rack which holds a dozen enormously deadly weapons. Case places both hands firmly on the handle of a giant greatsword. The blade weighs at least 50 pounds or more and is longer than Case's height. Case barely lifts the blade from the rack.
Definitely this one.
He smiles broadly with a twinkle in his eyes. Within another hour, the party feels prepared to depart. Given the choice of a troop of fire newts with an elemental or a herd of fiery insects, the party decides the insects would be possibly safer and faster. Malaysia chooses to bring 3 of the 5-pound slabs of coins for use in his catapult spell. He gives the explosive orb to Inicel. Case reviews the map again with the ghosts and Umgurn. They determine that unimpeded, it will take them no more than 5 minutes, moving at speed, to get to the mark X on the map. Once they've dealt with the large insects, they can move directly to the fire giant's lair within a few minutes. Theophania activates her drift globe to shed bright light. Inicel's scimitar glows brightly. Malaysia tinkers 4 pieces of obsidian to glow brightly and gives them to his homunculus, who puts one in each hand and grabs one with each of its clawed feet. When everything is set, Case drinks the first potion. Theophania casts Pass Without Trace. Case uses a potion of Cloud Giant strength. Case flexes his arms a few times and reaches for the giant greatsword. As if it were any other sword, he easily lifts it off the shelf.
Let's go.
The party charges out of the temple and back through the open doorway. They turn right and move back to the main tunnel, turning left and right quickly. The entrance comes into view and they dart outside and back in the eastern door. The floor of the tunnel is similar again with an ancient road, but they don't stop to investigate. On either side of the tunnel, the light sources show old encampments on the right and excavation tunnels on the left. After a minute or so, the tunnel suddenly turns north. The party continues in their rapid pace and then duck into one of the small encampment sites as the glow of the lava and magma stones faintly appears ahead. Inicel pulls Sister from her pocket and the little spider scurries back out of the room and north. Inicel's eyes go white as she moves with the spider directly. Only 10 armspans ahead, in the tunnel and in one of the encampment rooms, the huge insects appear. Inicel makes a nature check. Rolls 22.
Ah, I see. These are ankheggs. There are at least 7 or 8 of them. They are slowly patrolling the area, I think. Wait, yes, I can see that each has a black iron collar on its neck with a red glowing gem. These are not wild. They are serving a master, and their maws drip with fire, not acid.
Inicel ceases whispering what she sees, and her eyes return to normal. A few seconds later, Sister returns and climbs onto her shoulder and vanishes into a fold.
This tunnel is wide, but not wide enough for more than 2 of them to pass at a time. If we can get their attention at this end, away from the open space further north, we can attack them in a bottleneck.
Theophania pulls out her bow and checks the string. Unger nods. Bodinus draws his short swords. Peace brandishes their spear. Case hoists the greatsword up in the air and holds it steady.
We should form a line. Bodinus, Peace, Umgurn, and I. Theophania can attack with ranged weapons. Malaysia and Inicel can use their magic.
Case spins the greatsword in his hands easily. The party make stealth checks plus 10. Roll 32, 20, 29, 23, 32, 23, and 29. The party gets into a formation and moves 5 arm spans forward. Inicel's scimitar is dark and Theophania's drift globe goes black. They are surrounded in complete darkness, with the exception of the glow from the north. Bodinus moves 40 feet to attack Ankhead F, attacks with short sword, assassinate, surprise, sneak, moves 40 feet back to the party. Rolls 24 versus AC 14. for 47 total damage. Odinus bolts through the darkness to the closest Enkeg, stabs his short sword deeply into the creature's chest, causing it to collapse to the ground in a chittering screech, and then returns to the line with the party. The homunculus flies 2 arm spans ahead of the party and hurls all 4 glowing obsidian stones down the hallway. They click and clatter across the stones, their balls of light illuminating the legs and underbellies of the large insects. More aggressive chittering and clicking sounds grow louder in return. Everyone rolls for initiative. Theophania casts Hunter's Mark, attacks Lava Enkeg D with longbow twice, rolls 23 and 19 for 28 piercing damage. Theophania sees the first Enkeg come into view from the obsidian stone's lights, picking over the corpses of its falling insect kind, and squeezes her longbow. A red halo illuminates over the Enkeg. She releases 2 arrows, one after the other, which find their mark in the creature's chest. Malaysia attacks Enkeg D with shortbow and +1 arrow. Rolls 27 versus AC 14 for 11 piercing damage. Malaysia follows Theophania's lead and fires a magical arrow at the same Enkeg, catching it in the eye and dropping it to the floor of the tunnel. Enkeg A holds action. Enkeg E holds action. Enkeg B moves 30 feet towards the party. Enkeg A moves behind Enkeg B. Enkeg E moves behind Enkeg A. The narrow tunnel of solid stone ahead is a scramble of 2 or 3 Enkegs who try to move around and forward, but only get 6 arm spans down the tunnel and line up one after the other to advance. Case moves 35 feet north and east into melee with Enkeg H, attacks with giant greatsword twice, rolls 16 and 28 versus AC 14 for 64 total slashing damage. Case runs ahead of the line and around the corner into the encampment room to face 2 Enkegs. He swings with the massive giant's greatsword at the closest one, slicing its lower body in half and decapitating it. The other Enkeg screeches loudly. Peace moves into flanking with Case, attacks Enkeg G with spear, rolls 17 for 8 piercing damage. Peace watches in horror as Case breaks the line and disappears around the corner. They immediately dart after him, turn the corner, and see a mutilated Enkeg next to a fully upright and angry one. They hurl their spear and pierce its belly deeply. Enkeg G uses fire spray, DC 13 Dex saving throw, rolls 16 fire damage. Peace and Case roll 17 and 17, both saves, take 8 fire damage. Seeing its insect kin destroyed by the massive sword and feeling the pain in its belly, the Enkeg sprays a line of fire from its jaws directly at Case and Peace. They both dodge the onslaught of heat, but they are still singed by the flames. Odinus moves 40 feet. Bonus action dashes 40 feet. Attack of opportunity from Enkeg B on Odinus. Odinus attacks Enkeg C with thrown dagger, assassinate, surprise, and sneak. Enkeg B attack of opportunity rolls 12 for a miss. Odinus rolls 15 versus AC 14 for a hit for 56 total piercing damage. Odinus, quickly counting Enkegs, assumes there is one at the back that they haven't seen and risks the opportunity to kill it quickly. He races down the tunnel using his bugbear stealth to easily squeeze past the insects. One of them takes a bite at him, but misses. When Odinus gets to the next encampment room doorway, he sees his prize and hurls his steely dagger, stabbing it directly in the head. It falls to the floor. Inacel moves 30 feet forward, casts Healing Word on Peace, rolls 5 hit points. Inacel sees Peace jump from around the corner ahead and flames lick at the cat's fur. She rushes forward as far as she can and mutters druidic phrases, healing the tabaxi. Umgren moves 30 feet forward, attacks Enkeg G with crossbow, rolls 21 versus AC 14 for 9 piercing damage. Umgren also rushes forward to get a better position and sees the Enkeg that attacked Case and Peace. He fires his hand crossbow, catching the creature in the shoulder. Theophania moves 30 feet, casts Hail of Thorns, attacks Enkeg A twice with longbow, attacks Enkeg E twice with Hordebreaker longbow. Rolls 10, critical fail, disadvantage until next turn on all attacks, and 25 for 9 piercing damage on Enkeg A. Hail of Thorns rolls 10 damage. Dex saving throws are 6, 5, and 1. 3 fails. Rolls Hordebreaker 12 and 11 for misses. Theophania draws back her bow, squeezes the handle, and green glowing thorns encircle the arrow. She fires the first shot and feels a snapping pain in her hand. Despite the pain, she attempts a second shot, striking the Ankeg in the middle of the line ahead. A shower of green magical thorns explodes from the arrow and pelt all three of the creatures. She tries to fire a third and fourth shot at the furthest beast, but the pain in her hand is so intense the arrows go wide. She cries out in pain.
Malaysia moves to Theophania, casts Cure Wounds, rolls 9 hit points.
Malaysia hears Theophania's cry and sees her clutching her hand. He runs forward to her position and places both of his hands on her painful hand, and healing energy surges into her hand. She nods and turns back to the fray.
Ankeg A uses Fire Spray on Fodinas, rolls 14 fire damage. Fodinas Dex saving throw 24, uses Uncanny Dodge, takes 4 fire damage.
The Ankeg next to Fodinas sprays a blast of fire directly at the bugbear, but his reflexes are too quick, only feeling the slightest burn from the fiery spray.
Ankeg E uses Fire Spray on Fodinas, rolls 9 fire damage. Fodinas Dex saving throw 17, takes 5 fire damage.
The furthest Ankeg close to Fodinas also sprays a blast of fire near him, but Fodinas moves swiftly to the side and feels a bit of heat on his thigh.
Ankeg B moves into melee with Umgurn, uses Fire Spray targeting Umgurn, Theophania, and Malaysia. Rolls 6 fire damage. Dex saves 11, 11, and 4, 3 fails.
The unobstructed Ankeg in the tunnel moves quickly towards Umgurn and unleashes a spray of fire engulfing Umgurn, Theophania, and Malaysia, who are not prepared and get singed by the fiery blast.
Case moves 15 feet to Ankeg G, attacks with Giant Greatsword, moves 20 feet to Ankeg B, attacks with Giant Greatsword, rolls 32 versus AC 14 for 33 slashing damage, and rolls 15 versus AC 14 for 24 slashing damage.
Case looks back at Peace, then darts to the Ankeg that burned them, slashing it across the chest and dropping it to the floor. He turns back and rushes to the Ankeg that burned Umgurn and the rest, bringing the Giant Greatsword down across its side, slashing it deeply.
Peace makes an acrobatics check as they move into melee with Ankeg B, makes 2 unarmed claw strikes on Ankeg B, rolls 18 acrobatics, rolls 13 and 17 for 1 hit for 5 slashing damage.
Peace extends their claws and charges the nearest Ankeg, leaping into the air and bringing their claws down hard on the insect's neck, tearing it open. As it falls, Peace lands on top of it and hisses loudly at the remaining Ankegs.
Fodinas makes 2 short sword attacks on Ankeg A, rolls 28 versus AC 14 for 1 hit for 12 piercing damage, and 21 versus AC 14 for 1 hit for 7 piercing damage.
Fodinas thrusts his 2 short swords into the nearest insect horror, penetrating its chest and abdomen. It shrieks in pain and seems close to collapsing.
Inacel moves 30 feet towards Ankeg A, holds action.
Inacel rushes closer to the remaining insects with her scimitar drawn and her shield held forward.
Umgurn moves into melee with Ankeg A, attacks twice with scimitar, rolls 15 versus AC 14 for 6 slashing damage, and 13 for a miss.
Umgurn sprints to one of the 2 remaining insects and slices it with his double-bladed scimitar across the throat. As he brings his backswing towards the beast, he misses as the creature is already falling dead to the floor of the tunnel.
Theophania attacks Ankeg E twice with longbow, rolls 20 versus AC 14 for 10 piercing damage, and 23 versus AC 14 for 12 piercing damage.
Theophania, her hand healed by Malaysia's magic, fires 2 quick arrows at the last Ankeg, striking it in the chest both times. It seems to falter but remains standing.
Malaysia casts Firebolt at Ankeg E, rolls 14 versus AC 14 for a hit for 7 fire damage.
Seeing Theophania's arrows injure the creature severely, Malaysia hurls a bolt of fire at the creature, striking it in the chest and causing it to collapse.
The party receives 600 experience points each.
Fodinas motions for everyone to join him in the small encampment room. Inacel immediately begins handing out healing potions. 3 ghostly heads appear out of the floor, smiling at the party.
Fodinas, Case, Umgurn, Malaysia, Peace, and Theophania drink potions of healing, rolling 9, 8, 7, 6, 7, and 7 hit points.
Just ahead will be the entrance to the lava and the magma stones. There is what looks like a path of solid stone around the most dangerous areas. There is some smoke and smaller mounds of erupting lava, so you may be able to get within range of your magics before he sees you. We will be watching closely.
Brunel nods and smiles, then all three heads vanish into the floor.
Theophania casts Pass Without Trace.
We should be able to get within target range undetected now.
She smiles and checks her bow and quiver. Umgern nods quickly and points towards the door. The party moves out of the encampment site and north along the tunnel another 10 arm spans. To their right, a cavern mouth opens in the wall of the tunnel, and they can see the glow of magma and lava. The heat of the cavern is intense, but not unbearable.
This is likely at the base of the volcano's main vent. The heat and smoke are rising above, so it's not building up too much here.
Malaysia moves towards the heat, undaunted by the warmth. The others follow. Once through the cavern mouth, the ghost's comments become immediately more helpful. In front of them is a slab of obsidian that is warm to the touch and snakes to the left around a pit of lava surrounded by large chunks of stone floating in the cooler magma. The edges of the pit, which is about 12 arm spans long and 4 arm spans wide, have several small eruptions of fresh lava that flow into the pools in tiny rivulets. The heat from the pit causes their vision to be distorted beyond it. The light from the lava, though very hot, is only bright enough to illuminate the ceiling in faint detail. In the distance, though it is hard to see clearly, there is an enormous pool of lava that must be the central volcano pool.
The party makes stealth checks versus the fire giant's perception check. Roll 34, 31, 24, 12, 21, 20, and 32 versus 9.
Despite Umgern having very unsure footing and slipping a few times on the obsidian as he leads the group, the rest of the group remains perfectly silent, moving slowly across the slippery stone. Once around the initial lava pit, the obsidian path goes further north and east. Fodinus drops Slipknot to the floor, and the weasel dashes northward for a few seconds and then returns.
Nothing north but a stone wall and more lava pits.
Fodinus points east, and the group continues as silently as possible. After about 6 arm spans, the obsidian path turns north again, and there are no fiery lava pits to obstruct the view. In the distance, illuminated faintly by the lava pits on either side of him, is the fire giant. It stands more than 3 arm spans tall and has a large greatsword, almost identical to Case's, in front of it with the tip on the ground and the handle in his hands near his chest. He is standing in front of a large stone throne adorned with skulls and surrounded by large boulders. In front of him are 2 fire newts riding some sort of beasts with long, powerful back legs and tiny forepaws. Fodinus looks at the obsidian path from himself to the giant.
Okay, Umgern. I am certain I can get to the giant, strike him hard, and get almost back to the group. I don't know how fast those things on either side can move, but I think I can get enough distance from the giant to be safe from his sword.
Fodinus seems only half convinced of what he is saying. Inicel places her claws on his shoulders and smiles.
Inicel makes a persuasion check versus Fodinus' insight check. Rolls 21 versus 21.
Fodinus, you only need to wound it. Malaysia and Peace will strike it with their magic wands. I will hurl this ball of explosive acid. That giant won't even get a chance to move, much less attack you. Okay?
Fodinus frowns slightly, but then nods. Her words are mostly true, and he seems reassured, but still nervous.
Let's do this.
As Fodinus prepares to make his surprise run on the giant, Peace prepares the wand of magic missiles, Malaysia prepares his wand of lightning bolts, Theophania draws a dynamite-laden arrow in her bow, Inicel tests the weight of the orb of obfuscation, and Case moves slightly to the front of the group to be the forward guard with his massive sword. Ungern stands next to him, crossbow raised in one hand and scimitar in the other.
Fodinus moves 38 feet into melee with Fire Giant, attacks with short sword, assassinate, sneak, surprise, moves 42 feet back to the party, rolls 15.
Fodinus streaks across the obsidian pathway in silence with his short sword in front of him, pointed right at the fire giant's chest, at the gap between the chest plate and the abdomen plate. He slams into the enormous giant, and his blade slides up and between the gap, but makes a solid metal sound as the blade doesn't penetrate. He turns and runs back hard to the party as the yell of the fire giant echoes through the chambers, and the fire newts on their mounts turn towards the party, yelling alarm.
I missed.
Fodinus returns to the line, turns, and prepares for the attack. Thank you for visiting Engedrian. Don't forget to find us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for additional content, battle maps, and background details. We hope you're enjoying our adventure. We can't wait to hear what happens next.